Welcome to a bit of a random video that you're going to be getting a little bit early. I don't need these on. Welcome back to Revelo Gym Games, where this video is early, because there's hopefully going to be another video a bit later in the week, but I don't exactly when. I'm doing something a bit different with it, you have to wait and see. So I'm doing something simpler for now. Recently, on our Action in 60-second shorts, we have finished the basic list, as it were, and I thought it might be fun to go through and do another stupid tier list that, you know, has no real relevance and makes no real sense, but it is kind of silly to do. And I happened to find that there was one for the actions, the basic actions in Pathfinder 2nd edition. It's not all of them, there are some missing, and there might be a couple that we haven't actually technically covered yet, but we're going to do what's here just for the fun of it, kind of like we did with skills, and we'll go through briefly what each one does, but a lot of these we do have in our Action 60 seconds videos, which are all shorts, summarize what each action does, what it doesn't do, and things like that. They've been a lot of fun to make, and I'm interested to get into some of the more specific ones in the future, so check that out if you like. I'll have it pinned somewhere up above, but for now, yeah, let's have a look at these actions and rank them on a tier list. Our very first action that we have is Aid. Aid is an action and a reaction. It's triggered when an ally is about to use an action that requires a skill check or an attack roll, and the requirement is that your ally is willing to accept your aid and you've prepared to help already. So this is a kind of convoluted one, but it is certainly more powerful now, I believe, than it was in the original remaster, because the DC is now a bit lower than it used to be. But essentially, this allows you to help someone else with an attack or with a check, as long as you spent an action preparing to aid them in the past. And then you have to make a skill check and get a, beat a DC 15 usually. I think it used to be DC 20 as a standard, and now it's lower, which makes it more likely for people to get even at low levels. Obviously, the DC is higher if it's going to be a more difficult task. And if you get a critical success, you give them a +2 circumstance bonus. If you're master, it can be a +3, and if you're legendary, then the skill is a +4. Success is a +1 bonus, critical failure, and whoops, you've given them a -1. This can also be used for long tasks as well, potentially, but then that's not really an action like we're talking about, and you may well need proximity, but you don't necessarily need it. And aiding the same creature multiple times can potentially have diminishing returns. Aid is a really cool skill, and I really like its ability. And humans have some fun stuff they can do with it as a ancestry feat. I don't think it gets used that much though. My players have barely used it, if ever, and that's a shame. I think they just forget about it, because +1 or +2 or higher at later levels can easily jump something from being a fail to a success, to a crit success. So it is definitely a good skill if you've got the time and reasons to use it. But I don't think people remember to use it or remember that it's there, and as an easy action and reaction, I think that's another part of a reason why. So I'm going to throw this in B tier for now. Next up, we have Arrest a Fall. Arrest a Fall is another reaction, starting off with a bunch of reaction-y ones. This means you have to have a fly speed for a start, and you have to be falling. There you go. You attempt a choice of an acrobatics check or reflex save to slow your fall. The DC is usually going to be 15, but it might be higher. And if you succeed, you take no damage from the fall. Cool. I like this one. It makes a lot of sense that you would be able to do it if you can fly, like you see in lots of films when people use their wings at the last moment to slow themselves down. But it is very niche. A lot of people don't have a fly speed, especially at lower levels. But it can be useful in certain situations, so top of C tier. Avert Gaze. This is one action, and you avert your gaze from danger, such as a Medusa's stare. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to saves against visual abilities that requires you to look at a creature or object, such as Medusa's petrifying gaze. Your gaze remains averted until the start of your next turn. +2 bonus is really good, again, can potentially save you from being stunned or petrified or whatever, but again, quite niche, quite specific, but I think a little less so than Arrest a Fall is, so we're going to put this below Aid in B tier. Next up, we have Crawl. This is also one action and has the move trait, which means if someone has a reactive strike and you try and crawl away from them for some reason, they can still hit you. Requirements are that you are prone and your speed is at least 10 feet. If it's less than 10 feet, you can't move far enough. With Crawl, you move 5 feet by crawling and you continue to stay prone. Useful when you're trying to take cover or stay out of the way of people. I'm sure this has situational use again, but I don't think it's going to come up with that much unless you're being really stealthy or trying to stay in cover and out the way of ranged fire. So, is Arrest of Four? I think Arrest of Four is still less likely to come up, so it's going to go top of C tier. Next we have Delay. Now, Delay is a free action that you can take when your turn begins. You wait for the right moment to act. The rest of your turn doesn't happen yet. Instead, you're removed from the initiative order, and you can return to the initiative order as a free action triggered by the end of any other creature's turn. It permanently changes your place in the initiative order to this new position, and you can't use your actions until you come back into the initiative order. And if you delay an entire round without coming back in, the actions from the delay turn are lost and your initiative does not change, and you have to do it again. When you delay, any persistent damage or other negative effects that would normally occur at the start or end of your turn occur immediately when you use the delay action, and any beneficial effects that would end at any point during your turn also end. The GM might determine that other effects when you end when you delay as well. So you can't delay to avoid negative consequences that would happen or to extend benefits, which makes sense and gets around some of the few issues with delay. But I think delay is pretty cool. It's certainly useful in certain situations where you may roll really well on your initiative, and it means that actually a part of a plan isn't going to quite work if you take your action when you need to. So I think it's certainly something that comes up quite often in our games, and it's quite useful. So I don't think it's going to go in A, but I think definitely top of B tier. Next we have Demoralize. This is one action and has the most traits we've seen so far: auditory, concentration, emotion, fear, and mental. Auditory means that it relies on sound, so if certain creatures can't hear you, then that's gonna, cause a problem. Unless you have certain items like Intimidating Glare, where it's no longer auditory. Concentrate means it requires a degree of mental concentration. Certain abilities and things prevent you from doing this, like Rage for Barbarians means they can't concentrate most of the time. Emotion means it alters a creature's emotions. Certain things can't be affected by emotional effects, and therefore this would not work on them. We did a video a while back on the Crawling Hand, which is an undead, which can't really be affected by emotional or fear effects, and also doesn't have ears, so not affected by auditory effects either. So in a Demoralize attempt, if you try to do that on that, obviously would not work. Fear effects, again, they invoke the emotion specifically of fear, and effects of this trait also have mental condition and emotional as well, which makes sense, and again, fear effects don't work on all things. And mental means a mental creature can affect a target's mind, and has no effects on mindless creatures, like certain undead and plants and things like that. It requires use of intimidation, at the very least untrained intimidation. You're going to do better with it if you're more trained, and you use a certain shout or taunt or a cutting put down to try and shake an enemy's resolve. You choose a creature within 30 feet of you who you are aware of, and you attempt an intimidation roll against the target's will DC. If they don't understand your language you're speaking, or you're not speaking a language, you take a -4 circumstance penalty to the check. And regardless of the result, the target is then temporarily immune to your attempts to demoralize it for 10 minutes. So this really is a once a combat kind of item for you to use on a certain target. So if it's on a boss, choose it wisely. If it's smaller enemies, then it's a little bit easier to just throw on where you want to, if you've got a bunch of them to cut through. On a success, they become frightened 1. On a critical success, they become frightened 2. When a creature is frightened, they take a status penalty equal to its value to all checks and DCs, unless specified otherwise, and at the start of your turns, the value decreases by 1. So this reduces, all manner of things. It's a lot of stuff. So it's a pretty powerful debuff to be to all checks and DCs. It makes enemies easy to hit, makes them less effective. It's very good. It's very good to use. Obviously, if you fail, that's a shame because you can't use it on them again, but it is useful enough, and if you combine it with other abilities as well, it can be very powerful. So Demoralize is definitely going to go into top of A tier. I say top, it's only on an A tier at the moment. Anyway. Next is Drop Prone. It's one action, it has the move trait, and you fall prone. I think this is going D tier. It's got uses, obviously, but not many. It's an action for action's sake. It makes sense to have it as an action, but yeah, it's not particularly interesting or anything. After this we have the escape action, again one action, and this does have the attack trait, which means it does contribute even towards your multiple attack penalties, because you are trying to force your way out of a creature's grasp one way or another. It allows you to attempt escaping from being grabbed, immobilized or restrained, and then you choose one creature, object, spell effect, hazard or other impediment imposing any of these conditions on you, and you attempt to check with your unarmed attack modifier against the DC of the effect. It's usually going to be an athletics DC of a creature grabbing you, a thievery DC of a creature who tied you up, the spell DC for a spell effect, or the listed escape DC of an object, hazard or other impediment. You can also attempt to use acrobatics or athletics as well instead of your unarmed attack modifier, but this doesn't make it not have the attack trait if you're still making a roll. Obviously if you take assurance, then that's a bit different, but that's a topic for another time. If you critically succeed, you get free from the grabbed, mobilized and restrained conditions imposed by your other target, and can then strive up to 10 feet. If you succeed, you get free and remove the grabbed or other conditions, and if you critically fail, you don't get free and can't attempt to escape again, which is not great. Escape is certainly situational. If you never get caught, you're never going to need to use it, but it is a very vital skill, you know, I suppose. It's also a very useful one for enemies to have, so I don't know, I think we're going to put this in B tier, above Avert Gaze, but below Aid. Next, we have Grab an Edge, which is another reaction one and has the Manipulate trait, which, similar to Move, involves making physical gestures and things like that. So creatures without suitable appendages can't perform actions with this trait, and they do trigger reactions like Reactive Strike. This triggers when you fall past a ledge or handhold when you're falling, and you need your hands not to be tied behind your back or otherwise restrained. Essentially, you try to grab something as you're falling, and you must succeed on your choice of acrobatics or reflex save, usually at the climb DC. And if you grab the edge or handhold, you can then climb using athletics. Critically succeed and you grab the handhold, whether or not you have a hand free, typically using a suitable held item to catch yourself, like catching a battle axe on a ledge is the example that we're given here. But you still do take damage from the distance fallen, so you treat the fall as if it was 30 feet shorter though. If you succeed, you have at least one hand free, you grab the edge or handhold, stopping a fall, and you still take damage from the distance you fall, but as if you're 20 feet shorter, not 30 feet. If you have no hands free, however, you continue to fall as if you'd failed the check. Until you critically fail, you continue to fall, and if you fall on 20 feet or more before you use this reaction, you take 10 bludgeoning damage from the impact for every 20 feet fallen, so it will do more damage, which is not pleasant. Again, certainly a very situational one, but another good thing to have as an option if you are falling to, you know, stop you falling, I suppose. It's going to come at more than Arrest to Fall, but I think less than Crawl. I think it goes in there, in middle of C tier for us. The next action is Interact, which is one action and another Manipulate trait. You use your hands or hand to manipulate an object or the terrain. You can use this to grab an unattended or stored object, draw a weapon, swap a held item for another, open a door, or achieve a similar effect. And on rare occasions, you might attempt a skill check to determine if your interact action, I suppose interaction's correct, was successful. Interact can do pretty much anything, a lot of things. It's got an awful lot of utility, so I think that puts it into A tier, maybe even S tier, I suppose. But we'll stick with A for now. Leap. This has the move trait because, you know, you're leaping. You take a short, horizontal or vertical jump. It's one action also. Jumping a greater distance requires you to do a athletics roll for a high jump or long jump, which are different actions. And if you do a horizontal jump, you do 10 feet horizontally if your speed is at least 15 feet, or up to 15 feet horizontally if your speed is at least 30 feet, and you land in a space where your leap ends, then you can typically clear a 5-foot gap or 10 foot if your speed is 30 feet or more. And you can't make horizontal leaps if your speed is less than 15 foot. Or a vertical jump up to 3 feet vertically and 5 feet horizontally onto an elevated surface. Leap's useful. It can be used without making any checks to cover small distances and stuff, which is things that have killed players in my games in the past and things like DCC, where that is less of a given. So it's definitely got some utility to it, that's for sure. But my players haven't used it that much either. I feel like top of C tier, but we're going to go with bottom of B tier instead, I think. Next, we have the Point Out action. Again, one action, auditory trait for sounds, Manipulate and Visual. because you're shouting and pointing. You get the idea. Visual I think we've not had before, but you know, it's for seeing something. Requirements: a creature is undetected by one or more of your allies, but isn't undetected by you. So you've noticed something, but your allies haven't. You point it out, essentially, gesturing in a direction and describing the distance verbally. That creature is then hidden to your allies rather than undetected, meaning that they know roughly where it is and they can try and target it even if they're not 100% certain. It only works for allies who can see both you and are in a position that they could potentially see their target, and if allies can't hear or understand you, they must succeed on a perception check against the creature's stealth DC, or they misunderstand and believe the target's somewhere else, which is just quite funny. This is one that's not really come up in our games that much, I think because of the style of games that we've been playing, but I do really like it as an action to help clue in your other allies onto where things are in a game where sneaking and hiding and stuff is more mechanically based, if that makes sense. So I think I'm going to put it above Avert Gaze, but again below Escape and Aid and stuff, because it doesn't come up that much, but if it does, I think it could be very useful. I think it should in theory at least come up more and be more frequent than Avert Gaze and Leap. The maybe Leap should be higher. I don't know, we're going to stick with it for now. Next up we have the Razor Shield action, which is going in S tier immediately. This is one action, and you do need to have a shield to be able to do it, but this is something anyone can do if you've got a shield. You position your shield to protect yourself. When you have a shield raised, you gain the listed AC bonus. Your shield remains raised until the start of your next turn. And this allows you to do all sorts of stuff. If you're like a fighter, you can do shield block, otherwise it just increases your AC, and certain shields have other effects they can use as well. Some additional fighter feats allow you to like reinforce your shield. There's lots of stuff. It's cool. I like how shields work in Pathfinder, and that you know you don't always have the shield bonus. You have to spend an action on it, and so do enemies. Yeah, definitely an S tier for me. Ready up next. This is 2 actions and has the Concentrate trait, and also technically requires a reaction. You're prepared to use an action that will occur outside your turn. You choose a single action or a free action you can use, and you designate a trigger. Not 2 actions. I don't know where I got that from when I mentioned that in my previous video. Your turn then ends, and if the trigger you designate occurs before the start of your next turn, you can use your chosen action as a reaction, provided you still meet the requirement to use it. And you can't ready a free action that has already got a trigger. If you have a multiple attack penalty and you ready an action, it's an attack action, you also have the multiple attack penalty on that action. And this is one of the few times the multiple attack penalty applies when it's not your turn, as it does not on reactive strikes. It's alright, I'm sure there's situations where it is useful, but the fact it costs you 2 of your actions and your reaction to do one thing means it's got to be very situational. So I think top of C tier, because it's pretty cool and certainly got some utility, but not a lot of the time. So next we have Recall Knowledge, which has the Concentrate trait again and the Secret trait and costs 1 action. The secret trait means that it happens secretly, so the GM rolls this check for you if you're in person, or I suppose you close your eyes and rolls it somewhere, or if you're an online user, you know, GM only roll. And this is another one I really like. This is another S rank for me. It's not above Razor Shield, but it is definitely an S rank skill, because it allows you to learn more about your foes based on knowledge that you have. You know, if you know things about undead and you have the undead lore skill, you're more likely to recall knowledge about them, or if you have the occult skill, you might be able to recall some things about them. If there's some kind of plant monster attacking you, if you have nature, then you're more likely to recall things about that. It's just a really cool ability and helps, again, make your character's knowledge and experience and past fill in and fit into the game more, and gives you more options in combat, which is also great. It's also very useful outside of combat, if you're trying to, you know, recon and gain information on creatures before attacking them, figuring out what weaknesses and strengths they have to try and formulate a plan on how to deal with them. After this we have Seek, which is 1 action and also has the Concentrate and Secret traits. And this is when you are searching for enemies. So instead of, this is what you do before you get to the point out stage, essentially. You scan an area for signs of creatures or objects, possibly including secret doors or hazards. Choose an area to scan, and the GM determines the area you can scan with the Seek action. It's almost always 30 feet in one dimension or a bit less. The GM may impose a penalty if you search far away from you and adjust the number of actions it takes to do a Seek of a particularly cluttered area, if there's a lot more stuff to deal with. Make a secret perception check against the stealth DC of any undetected or hidden creatures in the area, or the DC to detect each object in the area is determined by the GM, and creatures may become hidden rather than becoming fully observed if using imprecise sense, or if it's an effect such as an invisibility or something like that. If you critically succeed, any undetected or hidden creature you critically succeed against becomes observed, and you learn the location of objects in the area if you critically succeed against them. And if you just succeed, any undetected creatures become hidden from you instead of undetected, and any hidden creatures become observed. So it goes in that kind of scale. And you learn the location of any object or clue to its whereabouts by the GM. That's cool. Certainly a good thing for investigation and for trying to find out where enemies may be. But again, not used an awful lot, but if we put point out there, and Seek has more use than that, I feel like Seek has to go just above it in B tier. Okay, we've only got a few left now, and these are pretty simple. Stand. It's one action and has the move trait. You stand up from being prone. I can't really put this anywhere other than also in D tier with drop prone. I guess I'm going to put it above drop prone, because more times you want it to stand than drop prone, I think, but they could probably go either way. Next we have Step, which is one action, has the move trait, but it is a special one because you only carefully move 5 feet. And unlike most types of movement, stepping does not trigger reactions, such as reactive strike, which is pretty cool. However, you can't usually step into difficult terrain unless you have a specific feat that allows you to do so. You also can't step using a speed other than your land speed. You can't fly step or swim step, whatever that would even mean. So Step certainly got some utility. Definitely useful skill to allow you to maneuver in combat without attracting reactive strikes from powerful foes, where you could potentially take a lot of damage. Where's it going to go? Ooh, I think this is another low A tier, honestly, as it is a very potentially powerful skill if you use it correctly to get into combat, fight, and then step to get away from enemies, and then they've got to come back towards you if they don't hit you. They don't get to do it for free, but they also don't get hits on you as you retreat out. It's a good option to have, and I like that it's only one action, unlike in 5e where you have to disengage a lot of the time, which is your whole action. Next up is Stride, and this is just, it's got the move trait, it's one action, it allows you to move. It's movement. I mean, moving's kind of important in Pathfinder. I guess it's top of S tier? I don't know, I suppose. Okay, my camera keeps dying, so let's round these out quickly. Next we have Strike. It has the attack action, obviously, attack trait, and allows you to make attacks. If you critically succeed, you do extra damage and critical specialization effects. Great. It allows you to do damage. It affects affected by multiple attack penalty, obviously, but it's a large part of the game, obviously, for fighting and combat and stuff. So Strike definitely goes at the top of S tier. More to say, but yeah, my camera is playing up, so we're going to rush through this. Take cover. Final action. It's one action. You need to be benefiting from cover to use it, or you need to be near a feature that allows you to take cover, or you need to be prone. You press yourself against a wall or duck behind an obstacle to take advantage of cover. Better advantage of cover. If you would have standard, you instead gain greater cover, which provides a +4 bonus to AC, and to reflex save against area effects, or to stealth checks to hide, sneak, or otherwise avoid detection. Otherwise, you gain the benefits of standard cover, which is +2. And this lasts until you move from your current space, use an attack action, become unconscious, or end this effect as a free action. It's pretty cool, it's pretty useful. Just going in A tier. I think we're going to put it below Demoralize in A tier. This is pretty cool, it's pretty useful. And there we have our list. Very silly, but there you go. That's what I roughly think at this point in time for these actions we have on this list for a tier list. Strange video, no, but yeah, hopefully there'll be another one out later in the week. Where would you put things in your Pathfinder 2e action tier list? That's a strange sentence. That's all for now. See you in the next one. Goodbye.